Disclaimer, I do not dislike CinemaSins, and that is not a lie. For my next Everything Wrong with CinemaSins video, I'm going to be saying their video on Wreck-It Ralph, and I would like to say that I'm making this video specifically for Fiction Fanboy because it's his favorite animated movie. Enjoy, everyone.
42 seconds of Disney logos.
Well, these are a way in which movies work, so they're going to continue to be shown regardless of if you like it or not.
My name's Ralph.
Narralfation.
Actually, this is and isn't narration. While it is narration for the audience, it's not for the movie because Ralph is introducing himself at Badnon, like what Jay Exci said.
So the plot of this video game is that Ralph finds stumps to sleep in, and a bulldozer comes by to remove this one stump for some stupid reason, and then Ralph, who apparently has very specific sleeping needs, gets angry and destroys entire apartment buildings? I forgot how much coke everybody was doing in the 80s.
Well, yeah, since that's Ralph's role as the game's bad guy.
I'm gonna wreck it!
This is exactly what I used to yell at my college girlfriend shortly before ruining sex.
Jeremy makes an inappropriate comment, cliche.
If he was a regular carpenter, you would not be able to fix the damage that I do as quickly.
Wreck-It Ralph would be amazing at CinemaSins.
Well, considering he was applying real-world logic to something fictional, yeah, I'd say he'd do quite well at CinemaSins.
All clear! The arcade's closed!
I see you got some Toy Story in my Wreck-It Ralph. Once again, there's virtually no way these game characters could do this unseen. But hey, my disbelief's been drunk before, so maybe I can accept it this time.
But since the arcade is closed, this character won't be seen saying that. So how did you miss that from the scene that you just played?
Since everybody in the video game universe realizes this is all a show, why is Ralph ostracized? What this movie is saying is that our human projection of Ralph's villainy translates to the characters in the video game world. But meanwhile, Roo and Ken can be battling and decide to get a drink together after the arcade is closed because they know it's all make-believe.
Because that's how the Nicelanders are characterized at first. They believe that Ralph's role as the game's villain defines who he is, which is why they always shun him after the arcade closes. This is what leads to Ralph game jumping into Hero's Duty to win the Medal of Heroes so that he'll earn the same respect they give to Felix.
So they were all in the Pac-Man game for that Badanon meeting, but in just a few moments everyone's gonna act like going into a game not your own, aka game jumping, is a bad thing. But clearly the act itself is okay if the circumstances are right.
Yes, there is an instance when it's okay and an instance when it isn't okay. The former is when the arcade is closed and the latter is when it's open. As shown multiple times in the film, a character leaving their game while the arcade is open leads to the game being put out of order.
So this video game subway travels through a surge protector, where all the video game characters can go back to their homes. But what happens if the game is plugged in elsewhere? Surely not every game in the arcade hooks up to this one surge protector.
But that's kinda what the movie shows you here.
Name? Lara Croft.
Haha, but how does Ralph know about Lara Croft, a character who was never an arcade fixture?
Now, what was it you were saying, Jeremy?
Because if you die outside your own game, you don't regenerate.
I have no doubt about this, but it does raise this question. There are multiple copies of these arcade games all around the world, right? There are thousands of other Wreck-It Ralphs, Pac-Mans, etc. And did they all go through existential crises?
I'm sure there are, but since this movie focuses on games in this specific arcade, that's not important to the story that is being told here.
We're just the bad guy who wrecks the building.
Again, what are all these people pissed about? Are they the only video game characters who don't know they're in a game? Do they really live their lives inside this machine and get upset when Ralph comes in to wreck their home? Do they not realize that it all goes back to normal once the game is over?
See this part of Sin 106.
Sweet Mother Hubbard.
Yep, there were two big budget movies in 2012 that made weird Mother Hubbard references. This and The Amazing Spider-Man. How did that even happen?
I don't see how that's a problem with this movie, so I'll be giving my award to this sin.
What a ripoff.
I guess this is our first time playing this game? Good thing, too, because what if a Hero's Duty expert was playing right now? Wouldn't that person report this strange, bizarre weirdness?
It probably is since Hero's Duty just got plugged in. But also that didn't happen, so why is this even a sin?
Where's Ralph? He should be wrecking the building.
Okay, so now you're telling me that the innocent apartment dwellers do know Ralph is supposed to wreck the building and that's his job? Because you can't have these same characters pissed off when he doesn't do it.
Again, they believe that his role as the bad guy defines who he is, which drives the plot of this movie. Do I need to say more?
Felix Speaking Q*bert is the single biggest f*** you this movie has to offer. Q*bert, as a game, was so infuriating I can't even enjoy this game.
As I've said before, that's just your opinion, so this will be getting my award.
The arcade is now closed.
But they only played one game. They just opened the arcade before this one game. How is this f***ing arcade already closed?
Jeremy fails to realize that this jump cut goes forward a couple hours, and this part of the film is taking place much later in the day.
Sugar Rush.
Oh, but you know who Lara Croft is.
Ralph's just saying this because he's trying to figure out where he is. What does him knowing who Lara Croft is have to do with this scene?
No, my manhole! metal!
How did the metal get all the way back here? When Ralph ejected, he went backwards. But that means the metal had to come off his neck and fly an additional 1,000 feet or so, and magically hook higher up onto another candy cane tree.
Well, yeah, you can see the metal flying where the pink arrow was pointing.
Cybugs will chew up that game faster than a chicken hawk in a coop of crippled roosters.
Forced simile aside, no, you're wrong. It takes f***ing ages for the Cybugs to become an actual threat in Sugar Rush.
Oh, so I guess it didn't take a few hours for that one Cybug to lay this many eggs, did it?
You die outside your game, you don't regenerate.
You keep telling us that, but we haven't seen it once.
True, but we do see it at the end of the film when the Cybugs and King Candy get vaporized.
This gold medal from an entirely different game works as a gold coin in this game.
Yeah, so...
Fungeon?
Fun dungeon. You know, it's a play on words.
In a candy-based race game, though? Wouldn't a sweets-based jail pun make more sense? Like the Pecan Can, or the Gel Cell, or the Twinkie Clinky?
Well, considering that King Candy isn't actually from Sugar Rush, I feel like it makes sense to me for the pun to not be sweets-based.
Bam, you rotten little cavities!
Ralph's been in Sugar Rush for half a day and is already speaking in setting appropriate metaphors and insults.
See what I said 2 sins ago.
The vines, they're laffy-taffy. They're attracted to whatever makes them laugh.
No one knows why they were programmed into this game, but they're perfect ex machinas. In fact, what the hell is all this in a game where the objective is to race?
If the movie is setting these Laffy Taffies up right now, that means that they are not a Deus Ex Machina. You always seem to think that any solution to any problem is a Deus Ex Machina, and I can tell you that that is absolutely not the case.
So Vanellope puts nothing but trash into the mixing bowl, but when Ralph goes to fix everything, the trash magically disappears except for the TV. Now look, you can have magically disappearing trash because it's a video game, but you cannot keep the TV if all the trash is going to disappear once you get the right ingredients.
Except you're literally showing a scene of the shoe and underpants being visible right here.
I'll just magically win the race just because I really want to!
Look, wise guy, I know I'm a racer. I can feel it in my code.
She's right, of course, and unfortunately, because in the context of what has happened so far to this point, Ralph is also right.
Okay, so what makes that wrong here?
I think it's some sort of unfinished bonus level.
That they just left in the game? So the programmers of Sugar Rush were planning some sugar-free bonus level and decided not to include it at the last minute, but just left the code sitting there?
I mean, maybe, but again, it's not important to the story here, so does it really matter?
You really don't know anything, do you? Glitches can't leave their games.
Whoa, no need for the attitude, since you seem to understand his relative naivete. His ignorance shouldn't bring scorn. Also, learning this about glitches makes me supremely happy, knowing Swordless Link is forever stuck in N64's Ocarina of Time.
Sinning something you like.
One of these things is not like the others, it's you!
Again, now that we've broken this game down to its very code, how the f did this medal get accepted into the Winner's Cup? Is Barty Crouch Jr. behind this?
Doesn't matter. The movie said it got accepted, so let's move on.
What? Are you telling me that metal is an actual physical thing that can actually physically affect the outside world? This is like when Neo stopped the Sentinels with his mind in the real world.
I mean, yeah, the metal hit the game screen so hard to the point that it caused the out of order sign to fall over on one side.
King Candy tried to delete her code! He literally locked up our memories.
This movie yada yada's computer code worse than the 90s film Hackers did.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that, my dude?
Because if she crosses the finish line, the game will reset, and she won't be a glitch anymore.
That seems arbitrary. Is that how programs work? A glitch crosses the finish line and the whole game resets? And all that damage King Candy did somehow magically comes undone?
Yeah.
Come on, I know you're out there.
Twizzlers.
Pointing things out on the screen.
That Cybug you brought with you? Multiplied!
Of all the things in this movie that could have been cut, it's the Cybug subplot. Sure, we get a bit of fun with Felix and Calhoun out of it, but the main story of Vanellope trying to get reinstated into Sugar Rush is so much more interesting. They could have simply made this about getting the medal back and it would have been fine.
But if we didn't have the subplot with the Cybugs, then Ralph would have never ended up in Sugar Rush in the first place. Him ending up in Sugar Rush hinged on him stepping on the Cybug egg and the baby Cybug jumping onto his face.
Sweet mother of monkey milk, I did it!
Sweet mother of monkey milk?
Yeah, that's Vanellope's catchphrase in this movie.
Because of you, Ralph, I'm now the most powerful virus in the arcade!
I would just like to know how Turbo got eaten by a Cybug and that somehow turned him into a mutant. Let's not forget that Turbo is like 30-year-old programming code, and the Cybugs are fairly new, so how does their programming mesh together at all?
Well, this happens to Turbo because the Cybugs become what they eat. You'd know that if you were actually paying attention to the movie.
I'm bad, And that's good!
Look, no one loves this movie more than me. No one. But this is still a discount Iron Giant Superman moment here, and denying it only makes you a passionate liar.
But the difference here is that Ralph gets saved by Vanellope, whereas the Iron Giant actually did sacrifice himself, even though he survived. And also, just because people may not always agree with what you say, that does not give you a right to call them a passionate liar.
Also, it was one thing to have a sort of reference to the whole Mentos Coke thing, but to base your entire climax around it? What does a sudden grimace sound like? Because that's the sound I'm making. Phallic symbols.
Jimmy makes an inappropriate comment, cliche.
After all the destruction and the violence and death and that race ending abruptly, this should probably not work, right?
But it does, since Felix just fixed the finish line, so why is this a sin?
We asked them to help us out on the bonus levels.
Jesus, do the humans who play these ever wonder why characters from other video games suddenly show up in a 30-year-old machine?
No! I'm telling you guys, we haven't been this popular in years.
The idea that a 30-year-old game would suddenly surge in popularity just because Kuber characters are in it is goddamn silly.
Would have been nice if you told us why, Jer. And here's the end result, everybody. This in total was 260, and the sentence will be glitching. Thank you for watching, everybody, and have a nice day.